Hello and welcome to Mercy Volunteer Corps' Q&A. Our focus tonight is simple living. As part of their commitment, Mercy volunteers live a simple lifestyle. And tonight we have Grace joining us. Grace will share about her experience of living simply as a Mercy volunteer, as well as how she continues to live out this value following her MVC year. If you have questions, please feel free to send them in the live chat. So Grace, so nice of you to join us tonight. Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here today.
And I could just start with maybe you sharing a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Grace. I grew up in South Korea until I was 10 years old. And then I moved to Hawaii and lived there until I went to college in Omaha, Nebraska. I went to Creighton University, which is a Jesuit Catholic school, and that's where I was really first exposed a lot to like community service and some of the social justice issues that I wasn't quite as aware of growing up in Korea and also in Hawaii. So that experience definitely led me to want to volunteer post-graduation, and that's how I ended up with Mercy Volunteer Corps, where I served as a volunteer from 2014 to 2015 for 1 year at Mercy Neighborhood Ministries in Philadelphia, which is a community center with Head Start programs, which are like federally funded, free preschool for low-income families. And then they also had some after-school programs and summer school and adult daycare center for like the elderly and adults with disabilities, and like GED tutoring for adults. So it was a busy center. They kind of had a lot going on. Um, and after that, I actually was hired by my service site when my service year was over. So I worked with them for a couple of more years in Philadelphia before returning or moving to Iowa. So now I live in Des Moines, Iowa, where my husband is from, who he also actually served as a Mercy volunteer from 2013 to 2014. So we are Mercy volunteer couple. Yes, and then after we moved back to Iowa, I went to graduate school at Iowa State University and studied sustainable agriculture and community and regional planning. And now I work with a nonprofit called Practical Farmers of Iowa. And it's a organization that helps farmers to build more resilient farm and also rural communities. So the organization was founded during the 80s when there was a lot of like farms going bankrupt during the farm crisis, where like a group of farmers actually came together to do experiments on their farm and find out ways to cut costs, like input costs, chemical costs, and still have high yields to make a living. So even today, the organization focuses on farmers experimenting on their farm, like fostering curiosity, and then like cutting, chemicals or things that might be like not as sustainable way of farming, and then having those farmers be the spokesperson to share their experiences, what they learned, what worked, what didn't work, hear their tips, things like that to other farmers, rather than like a government agency or like a university researchers like telling farmers, oh, you should be doing this, like this is what we think is best for you, but rather like having farmers figure out what's best for them on their land.
So fostering that sense of community in your workspace too.
Yeah, that's a huge huge thing at my organization is like the community building amongst the farmers and providing support for them.
Nice. Well, I'm curious, go back to like 2014 when you were looking at different postgraduate service programs, and curious if you can share a little bit about, as you were discerning that, what were your hopes for the experience, and how did you decide on which program and which service site was the right fit for you?
Yeah. So as I was saying before, like I knew I wanted to do a volunteer year after I graduated. I wanted to do that because it kind of felt like a dedication of my life, like part of my life, a year of my life, to serve. And I felt like while you can do that, in everyday life, or, when you volunteer once a month or things like that, there are a lot of ways you can serve. But I just thought life is going to get busier as you get older, have family, and this would be like the perfect time to do it, to really kind of focus like my year on serving. And I just thought I wouldn't really get another opportunity like this. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to grow closer to God, and grow deeper in my faith. And I thought serving was one way to do that. Um, I also wanted to just be exposed to like different community, different people, places. I I don't know. There's just a part of me that like always wanted to explore and learn about other places, and I thought this was like a great way to do it, with the support of, I guess, like a organization rather than like going out somewhere by myself. And then I also wasn't like 100% sure what I wanted to do with my career just yet. And at the time, I was kind of contemplating going into teaching. And I've actually taken like a couple of classes, like in education courses. So my service site being like a education center, I wanted to just try it out. And it was a good opportunity to do both like serving and also kind of exploring personally. Um, as for how I decided on which program, um, I also considered AmeriCorps and Jesuit Volunteer Corps, and I think like Franciscan Volunteer Corps. Um, with AmeriCorps, I didn't like it as much that you weren't necessarily in a community. Again, like going somewhere by myself in a new place felt a little bit more scarier, and it felt like it wasn't quite as uh, maybe like a purposeful than going with like a faith-based organization. Um, yeah, and then as opposed like between different faith-based organization, I kind of landed with Mercy Volunteer Corps because I felt like it was like the perfect size. Um, the Franciscan Volunteer Corps was like a lot smaller, and then the Jesuit Volunteer Corps was a lot bigger. And with Mercy Volunteer Corps, I felt like it was big enough to have like the support and network that I wanted, but small enough where I got to know all of the staff by person, and got to know all the other volunteers. So um, that was a big reason why I went with Mercy Volunteer Corps.
Grace, can you share a little bit about why you were drawn to a program that had a commitment to a simple lifestyle in community?
Yeah, I guess so. Simple lifestyle one, it just fit my personal value system. So um, like growing up in South Korea, where like natural resources are very scarce and they were very sustainability focused, and then growing up in Hawaii, where it's just really beautiful, and it just really helps you to appreciate the natural beauty of outdoors. I was always drawn to simplicity in a sense of like resource conservation or outdoor like wildlife conservation. Um, so in that sense, and like now what I do, my work is helping farmers put conservation practices on their land. And so it just, yeah, really fit my value system. But I also thought like simple living, it helped me to think about simplicity beyond just like natural resources or outdoors, and more about like lifestyle and how I spend my time. And that simplicity piece, I thought, would really reduce like distractions on my commitment to serving. Um, yeah.
I'm thinking what you were sharing about like your, both the places that your upbringing, and then kind of shifting to Philadelphia, which would not have the kind of, I guess, land that you'd be used to, or just like the very urban environment. And so that, yeah, that shift of what does simplicity look like when you take away from, not that it doesn't have its own beauty, it has wonderful like parks, urban parks and things, but Schuylkill River, but just a different relationship there with simplicity. I'm curious how your community committed to simplicity, and even beyond that, how you then personally were able to commit to some of those things that you're talking about in terms of like reducing distractions and sort of being able to be present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It we so my community, there were 4 people, including me, and then actually one of them ended up leaving, so it became 3. Uh, it uh, we spent a lot of time together, and found ways to do things that like cost money because living on stipend, we didn't have a lot of money. It really helped us to be creative, but it was a lot of quality time spent with each other. So we would like go to parks or Philadelphia, like there are a lot of like free city like fun events, and we'll go to those things, or we'll spend time cooking together and sharing meals together. Um, some of my community members worked at like a homeless shelter, and so during Christmas, we made like Christmas cookies and cards to hand out to her clients. So, just we found ways to like do fun things that were kind of building like relationship with each other, and like um, fitting our like values of like wanting to be compassionate and like give Christmas cookies to our neighbors, or and I think personally too, I think it was this thing about like my volunteer year, like when I looking back, it was simple in that like it was like a slow time of my life where I could take time to have those like weekly reflection, like spirituality nights, or take time to cook and like nourish my body and my, spirits, take time to like go work out, take time to go take walks. Like some of the things we did because we didn't have like a ton of money, like going on walks, like looking back, those were all very like life-giving things, and things that um, I almost kind of took it granted during my volunteer year. And then looking back, when now that life is busier, I was like, wow, that was such a valuable time in my life.
kind of pushed to being creative and figuring out how do we spend our time together. And I know for volunteers that are considering a year, sometimes the focus for the simple living is so much on the stipend. And that is a part of it, living on a minimal stipend, and figure out how do we like buy groceries together. And as you were saying, like how do we socialize in a way that allows us still have some money at the end of the month. But that really in the midst of the year, it feels like what you're speaking about is like volunteers so value the ability to be more intentional about choices and be able to kind of enjoy like the simple joys of life, really to be able to kind of settle more into the relationships. That seems to be more of like where the energy is, and less, not that the money piece isn't important, but like that the energy goes more towards how am I building this experience for myself.
Yeah, I think I mean there's definitely that money piece and being intentional, and uh, I mean part of me is after going through that year, I feel like, oh, I could live through anything. Like I don't need much. But really that stipend wasn't a constraint, but I think of it as it was more freeing, that that simplicity freed us to be present with each other, freed us to, yeah, like find joy in simple things and little things, that maybe I wouldn't have if I had like more things going on, or what I like call distractions.
What did you find? You shared some of what was life-giving. What did you find especially challenging? Especially as like, I think in the beginning, it's like, oh, this adventure, and then the mid-year hits, it's like, ah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I personally have some challenges, like, so that was kind of hard to go through some personal challenges while also going through like a transition of being in a new city, like living with new people, starting a new job, being in a new, community. So that was big. Another thing was my service site. I felt like it was like baptism by fire. So um, never having taught before and never having been around little children, all of a sudden, like I am surrounded by little kids and expected to teach. Um, so that was maybe like the first 3 months. I feel like it was pretty challenging, and then I've definitely had a moment of like, what am I doing here? Like, why did I go to college? And then I was like, why am I doing this? But again, it like gave me so much confidence on like, oh, like I can go through hard things and do challenges and like come out on the other end. So that was really valuable, and uh, also a humbling experience.
How do you still engage or live out this commitment to simplicity? Because I know, as you had stated at the beginning, it was something that really was like foundational for you. And so how do you continue to do that without the structure of the program?
Yeah, I have gotta be honest, it's definitely harder now. And I, in a lot of ways, I feel like I've kind of become more spoiled after my volunteer year. Um, but I guess professionally, uh, my job is to um, help farmers put in conservation practices and conserve like our resources. And another part of it is I actually recently switched my job about 5 months ago, and one of the big reasons for that was because this organization has like a everybody is welcome type of value. So it's a big tent organization where we have like a conventional big like corn or soybean farmers, but we also have like tiny organic vegetable farms, or livestock farms, or like specialty crops like chestnuts or cut flowers, or So it's a very diverse organization, and it's kind of rare to have that in agricultural sector. So it's very intentional about making sure everybody is welcome, and that we are here to unite people rather than like being divisive. And That's something that definitely like I am so thankful that I can have that professionally, like my personal value and a value that I developed during my Mercy Volunteer Corps to be able to have that now. It's such a big blessing. And I think personally, I think now I also view simplicity, like now that I'm in a different um, part of my life where I have more money or like I'm busier, like I think of simplicity as like what what would nourish like my body, my soul. Like, so if that means I'm gonna get a takeout tonight, I'm going to do that. And if that, getting a takeout, even though I'm spending money, if that's gonna allow me to have quality time with my husband or like be able to take my dog on a walk, like I'll do that. So I think that's one way I view simplicity is like try to make my life simpler to take care of myself and take care of like those around me. Um, and then also still being mindful about when I want to buy something, I'm like, well, do I like really need this, or is it a need or a want? Like I think I did that a lot during volunteer year, and like now I don't do that as extreme but I still do that. Yeah.
Some of those practices that were cultivated, it's like, all right, it's still there in terms of the reflection that's coupled with
Oh
that.
yeah.
I
I
love
mean,
that. You're sharing about slowing down enough to kind of listen, like what will be nourishing for me, because
mhm,
sometimes we're just so wrapped up in the go 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 that we're not listening to what our body's
mhm.
telling us. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and just even like I like to have a big to-do list, and sometimes I don't get around to it, and like giving myself grace to say, oh, that's okay that I didn't get around to it. Like my, my worth doesn't come from like all the things I accomplish or I've done my best, and like, in a way that's like being simple. Like I don't have to do all these things. Like, yeah.
Well, I'm curious, Grace, as we kind of wrap up our conversation, some of the folks that are watching tonight may be discerning, like you were a number of years ago, looking at postgraduate service or just a service program in general. So curious what advice you would have for them as they look at maybe committing to compassionate service and community living, a simple lifestyle, spirituality, social justice.
hmm I I may be biased, but I would say do it because like why not? Because you know I mean it might be cliche, but it's like I feel like no better time to do that when you don't have a big commitment in life yet. Like you don't have a spouse that you have to be in certain area, or you haven't taken a job that you're limited to it, or um, and also it having my volunteer year experience and even a couple of years afterwards when I was hired on by my community site, it just gave me so much perspective on uh, just big picture my life, and like how I see social justice issues now, or how I approach my work, or how I approach like farmers and landowners that I work with who are mostly from different backgrounds than me. So it just gave me a lot of just life values and lessons that I carry with me everywhere, like professionally, personally. um, it was very formative part of my life. When I look back, I feel like my 1 year of volunteer service was like almost just as much, if not more, formative in developing me into who I am now than it was for my college and high school.
Well, thank you it's been so nice to be able to reconnect with you through this chat, and appreciate all of your insights and you sharing so honestly about your experience. I just want to thank those also for joining us tonight for our Q&A. Wanted to let you know that we're currently accepting applications for service beginning in August. Applications are accepted on a rolling basis through our website, mercyvolunteers.org. And if you have any questions or would like to talk with the current Mercy Volunteer Corps volunteer or with Grace, you can reach out to us at recruitment@mercyvolunteers.org. So thanks again for joining us. Special thanks to Grace, and have a great night.
Thank you.